Good morning, everybody. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land of which I'm speaking to you from today, the Ngunnawal people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you're all joining us from today for the people that are joining us online, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and who might be watching. It's great to be able to be here in a hybrid fashion, and I welcome all those that are joining us here today. I welcome Mr. Mike Pizzullo, Secretary of Home Affairs. I welcome, of course, our guest speaker and Major General Coyle. Of course, I also welcome my university colleagues, the students that are here, which is the great part of today, and also our friends in the media. Now is a critical time to be talking about national security and what it means in the online environment. And today we're going to hear from one of our most respected leaders in this space. From a university perspective, we're delighted to partner with the Australian Signals Directorate and more than happy to welcome Rachel today. For those that don't know me, my name is Nigel Phair and I'm the Director of Enterprise for the Institute of Cybersecurity. Now, the Institute brings together a multidisciplinary team, and we have academics from both the Canberra campus and the Sydney campus, which really look at what it means to be in the online environment. That's both from a technical perspective and also a non-technical perspective. They do research and we deliver education at undergraduate, postgraduate, and also professional education around human, organisational, social, economic, and technical aspects of cybersecurity. We work with government, we work with industry, and we seek to solve real-world problems as they face us as we move forward. Now, it's no surprise that we'll hear today about cybercrime and the trends and how they escalate. I know that because I've got the speech right in front of me. And of course, these unprecedented escalation of attacks is going to attack individuals, businesses, and government, and of course that will continue. So in this landscape, it is unimaginable as ASD approach their 75th year to imagine what it was like the organisation back in the World War II and how signals intelligence has so dramatically changed. In today's address, Ms. Noble will discuss how Australia's oldest intelligence agency has advanced in the last 75 years. Now, ASD is the government agency responsible for protecting Australia against cyber threats, gathering foreign signals intelligence and conducting offensive cyber operations. And of course, Ms. Noble is the first woman to lead the agency. With a great career spanning a range of government departments, receiving the Public Service Medal, Rachel will talk today in her address about the uncertainties and what it is that we face and the opportunities that this brings with Australia's adversaries. We know that espionage and foreign interference sit alongside terrorism as the principal threats to our way of life and our safety. So in her role, Ms. Noble has overseen significant legislative reform, and its role and powers have obviously increased with that as the threat has increased. So what an exciting time to be part of this journey. I'd like to welcome the Director General. I left your speech there.
Nigel was just telling me he left my speech here for me, just in case. Thank you so much, Nigel, and thanks to the University of New South Wales for hosting me in the National Press Club. And I'm really grateful for all of you to come here in person today. It's actually really nice to see people face to face after what we've all been through. And I know there are some 450 people also watching online, Nigel, so thank you for that. Well, what a terrible 18 months it's actually been for the world. I actually started my new job as Director General of ASD with, as you'd probably imagine, enormous excitement. I returned from a fabulous, lengthy holiday overseas with my family where I'd had plenty of time to imagine how I wanted to lead this amazing organisation and how I might take it from strength to contend with a deteriorating strategic environment now and in the future. That seems like a distant memory now, and at the beginning of 2020, Australia was literally on fire, or so it seemed anyway. And as a new Director General, I had to face into the fact that at one point, the fire got merely metres away from one of our key operational buildings, and our people were in there working 24/7 to keep Australia safe. It was a mere 6 weeks after that COVID hit. So I mention this up front because I want to start by acknowledging the incredible people of ASD. I've been completely struck by their continued focus on our mission, their personal resilience and their incredible commitment to keeping Australia safe. So while I indulged on sort of remorseful reflections as the new DG of not being able to get out and finally meet the amazing staff in our organisation, let alone see face-to-face our incredible partners, not only in the Five Eyes, but also in industry, and some are here today with us, but also in the states and territories and around the world. My staff were just admirably getting on with the job. So my speech starts with a big thank you to them, and for those of them that I still haven't met face-to-face, I hope to see you soon. So next year is ASD's 75th birthday. So it's beholden on me, I feel, to continue to share with you the stories of our history. I have worked in ASD myself on and off for 25 years, so I suppose that might make me a bit of a historical artefact. But anyway, our US liaison officer reminded me recently, some may say rather rudely, that he and I and our beloved others went to the 50th anniversary ball together. And I said to him, I'm sure that was before I could legally drink. Anyway, my own long association with ASD, though, does cause me to reflect about what has changed, but what hasn't changed in that time for us as an agency, and for the challenges that we face in the world in which we find ourselves. And what I consistently observe is how relevant our past is to our future. So a bit of a quick recap for those of you who might be hearing about ASD for the first time. We are a foreign signals intelligence agency and cybersecurity agency. Our roots go back to the Second World War. Then, as we are now, we were charged with spying on the communications or signals of foreign adversaries to understand their operational plans and their intentions in order to ensure that Australia and its allies had the best possible chance to win the war and shorten it. Some historians estimate that the Allied code-breaking operation, especially the breaking of the German Enigma encryption machine, shortened the war in Europe by 2 to 4 years, saving an average of 7 million lives a year. Then, as now, we were equally charged with ensuring that our own encrypted communications could not be exploited by our enemies, so that they could not gain the same advantage that we were looking for over them. As an intelligence agency, we are best placed from a cybersecurity point of view to understand how to protect Australia from its adversaries and adversaries with capabilities like us. We are, as some say, the poacher and the gamekeeper. We are living in one of the most strategically uncertain times of my generation, and perhaps even the generation before me. We are at the crossroads, some are opining, of a potential major global power shift. As the Prime Minister said in July last year, the Indo-Pacific is the epicentre of rising strategic competition. Our region will not only shape our future, increasingly though, it is the focus of the dominant global contest of our age. More recently, the Director of the CIA, William Burns, said, "We are now facing our toughest geopolitical test in an era of great power rivalry. CIA will be at the forefront of this effort. Throughout our history, CIA has stepped up to meet whatever challenges come our way." I could say the same of our ASD. And others have opined that should this global power shift actually occur, it may not happen peacefully. I hope that's wrong. but it's not my place to make assessments about that one way or another. What I will say, though, is that throughout history, it has been and remains the job of intelligence agencies to enable our government and allied governments to have the best possible understanding of foreign adversaries' intent in order to help the government make the best decisions for our national interest and avoid misunderstandings or miscalculations. That's what ASD has been charged with since its creation. It is also a vitally important role of intelligence agencies, if the worst does happen, that we can ensure not only the best possible force protection and overwatch of our military and that of our allies, but that we are also able to generate capabilities through intelligence collection and more recently offensive cyber effects that will greatly shorten any conflict, like we always have. We never seek conflict, but we do want our adversaries to know that we are here, and we want them to calculate that today is not the day. So to summarise, the need for Australia to have its own sovereign signals intelligence and cyber security agency was a consequence of World War II. ASD is here to provide intelligence and effects to help avoid miscalculation and conflict, and if the worst happens, to shorten it and win it. That's our job, and we are focused on our mission, and we have done that throughout our history. I referred before to the role of ASD as poacher and gamekeeper. So over time, my predecessors and I have tried to explain what we mean by this, and perhaps we haven't really succeeded in doing those, explaining why the two functions are a natural part of one another and why our newest function of cyber offensive operations is a natural evolution of both. Our signals intelligence function gives us an enormous edge over adversaries. It brings with it the benefits of a Five Eyes alliance. SIGINT is what the Five Eyes was born from. We are the original Five Eyes. It is a genuine and fully integrated partnership. We each take our share of the load and genuinely seek not to duplicate each other's efforts. In all of the multilateral engagement that I've been involved with in my career, I've never experienced anything so profound as this alliance. And it's actually more than 75 years old. We have built trust and confidence among each other over that time, and we deliver to each other the most impactful intelligence in the world. It is also the result of many decades of capability, investment, and insight into the world's communications. We see into the internet, the good one and the bad, dark version of it, and we share tradecraft and capabilities that are world-leading. Signals intelligence is the secret sauce to making us all world-class cybersecurity agencies. It is this intelligence, the decades of investment in capabilities and the expertise of our people that give us a cutting edge as cybersecurity experts over and above any private company and any other governments in the world. It is this signals intelligence that makes our ability to give cybersecurity defensive advice and undertake offensive cyber operations like no one else can. The idea that we could draw a line somehow between these functions would take away the very cutting edge that Australia has and needs over our adversaries. In ASD, those functions are fully integrated. Our people move seamlessly among those teams, and we are committed to continuing to ensure we are one ASD team in pursuit of one mission to protect the security of Australia. Sometimes in public discussion, there's a contemplation of a standalone cybersecurity agency. For the reasons I've just outlined, this is why I would counsel against it. Our partnerships with other governments, including our states and territories and the private sector, can give Australia the best possible national threat picture for us all to act against those who threaten us in cyberspace. We are committed to deepening those partnerships. Our most critical private sector partners who run our critical infrastructure and our systems of national significance must be part of our full national defensive shield and must assure us that they can meet a minimum cyber security standard. So when we ring you and we tell you we think you've got a problem and give you some advice about what you might want to do about that, I implore you to take that advice and understand that it might be coming from some of the most top secret and sensitive insights in the world. We might not be able to tell you the details of what those insights are, and in the end, you can take your own chances for not listening. But in the national interests, we would prefer that you didn't take that chance. I want to turn now to the changes that I think might be ahead for ASD. Our involvement in World War II and more recent military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, among others, has always seen ASD play a largely supporting role. We've been there to provide intelligence that delivers advantage for our warfighters, to watch over them in the field, and to protect the security of their communications. Over the years, our people have very often been at the front lines side by side with our military. Our SIGINTers and cybersecurity defenders have often put their own lives on the line. But the future of warfighting is predicted by some to more likely begin in cyberspace. As the US Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin said earlier this year, in Hawaii, the way we fight the next major war is going to look very different from the way we fought the last ones. The youngest of ASD's functions, offensive cyber, started out as a boutique effort using computer network attack and covert online operations to disrupt terrorist threats. Since then, offensive cyber has been fully integrated into ASD's signal intelligence and cybersecurity functions and is a mature component of the One ASD mission to protect our national security. Malicious cyber activities pose a significant risk to Australia's national security and to international stability. As part of a full spectrum of ASD's efforts to defend Australia against cyber attackers, the offensive cyber capability is used to strike back against offshore cyber criminals conducting malicious activities. Using our intelligence insights and unique accesses, ASD observed criminals preying on anxious Australians by sending them fake SMSs, enticing them to click on links, purporting to be offering access to COVID support payments. We work with Australian telcos to block one malicious IP address at a time, but we soon realised two things. Firstly, that approach became a game of whack-a-mole that we couldn't win. And secondly, that the scam was being coordinated by a gang of organised criminals. We used our covert online operations and computer network attack capabilities to infiltrate the syndicate and tear it down from the inside. I'm proud to say, to this day, that syndicate has not been able to restart their vile business, and we will be there if they try. In cyberspace, ASD is increasingly becoming the first and last line of digital defence that protects our country from cyber attacks and thwarts those who seek to attack Australia by launching offensive cyber operations of our own. And we are right now fighting that battle with criminals, state actors, and serious and organised crime. And to be very clear, under Australian law, we consider both state actors and serious and organised criminals to be undertaking criminal activity when going after Australian networks. 25% of cybersecurity incidents responded to by ASD last year were against our critical infrastructure, energy, water, telcos and health, just to name a few. Some were state-based actors undertaking intelligence gathering, reconnaissance and pre-positioning malicious software, most likely with a view to activate it at a time of their choosing to deny, degrade or disrupt critical services to Australians. They are also capable of moving laterally between networks, getting into the weakest and moving up into the strongest using trusted network pathways to get there. Our goal is to defend our networks by pushing them off before harm is done and to undertake offensive cyber operations to deny them the benefits of their crime. As Minister Dutton said recently of asymmetric capabilities, offensive cyber capabilities are there, along with our other defence capabilities, to send a clear message that the cost of an adversary would incur in threatening our interests outweighs the benefit of doing so. As I said before, we are here to make an adversary think today is not the day. Being part of an offensive cyber team in ASD involves working on some of the most unique and cutting-edge operations in the Australian government. I get asked a lot, actually, about how ASD will contend with the technological challenges of the future. 6G, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, to name a few. My answer is simple. With the same innovation, imagination and creativity that we have dealt with that challenge over the last 75 years. I want to take you through a bit of a speed dating version of technology over the last 40 years to show you what I mean. I want to show you just how incredible the changes have been that ASD has had to contend with to stay on top of its game. In the 1970s, Morse code, analogue voice and teleprinters were the primary telecommunications means. Fax machines became mainstream office products. And back then, our tools of the trade were radio receivers, pen and paper, and the typewriter. In the 1980s, we saw the emergence of digital technologies in many parts of society. And in 1988, the first transoceanic fibre optic system was laid. Our tools of the trade then reflected the digital transformation. Computers were brought into our workplace, replacing manual paper-based processes. And we acquired Australia's first supercomputer in 1986. It has about 1/20th of the computing power of your smartphone. The 1990s digital transformation sees most telcos replace analogue with digital systems. Speed and capacity increases dramatically, and in 1997, Wi-Fi starts. Our tools of the trade are all computer-based. Advanced analytics tools and techniques were developed to keep up with the expansion of communications technologies. In 2000, the world doesn't end due to the Y2K bug. The dot-com bubble sees the rapid rise of internet startups, and affordable broadband internet access, followed in the next decade by the Internet of Things and mobile broadband. Demand for bandwidth explodes and the smartphone becomes part of our lives. And the rise of privacy concerns prompts widespread adoption of data encryption. Cybersecurity becomes mainstream as concerns about vulnerability in computer systems increases, cloud-based computing becomes a thing, and we see the rise of hyperscalers. Our workforce skill sets are expanded to include data science and big data engineering. We started to invest in artificial intelligence and machine learning. The point of telling you about all of those changes is to demonstrate ASD's capacity to adapt and change at the pace and speed at which our targets and technology have evolved. There have been times in our history when we thought we might go dark. That is, we could not see or hear the information we were targeting. I reflect on the significant changes that faced us as the world went from HF and we were challenged to be able to collect against our targets through the air to them transitioning to high-speed optical fibre. I recall at the time the conversations in ASD about how difficult this would be for us. The irony now is that we feared the lack of communications on the airways, and yet most of us will connect to the internet via Wi-Fi. That's not to say that the change didn't bring huge challenges for us, and through a mastery of our business and innovation, the people of ASD prevailed. It is throughout these decades that successive Australian parliaments have made legislative changes to enable us to continue to do our job within strict parameters and in a way that has continued to keep pace with technological change. We've also been a great beneficiary of significant capability investment over the years. Great SIG and cyber activities are an expensive business. It is beholden on all of us in ASD to continue to demonstrate the benefit of signals intelligence and cyber defence and offence to our national security. I believe that we have this in hand today, and we are ready and focused for what we will need to do in the future. We understand our role well and its profundity in these uncertain strategic times. So for those of you out there, students or otherwise, if any of my stories today have captured your imagination, then I encourage you to think about a career in ASD, or since I'm a team player and community-minded, frankly, in the intelligence community or the broader national security arena. We're looking for people with every possible degree and skills, and we don't mind even if you don't have a degree, as long as you've got commitment, imagination and courage, and you want to do something for your country, then ASD is the place for you. Please look out for our booth at the back of the room for the students who have joined us in person today, and those online. I understand our website has been running along the bottom of the live stream for you. So look out for how to apply. So I want to finish where I started. People matter. Sorry. And I know that the people of ASD have totally got this, and we are ready to serve our country whatever happens. Thank you.
Sorry, mate. Well done.
Thanks. About lost my voice.
Yeah, see, I don't need the lectern. Thanks. Great, that was perfect. Thank you very much. I'll let you have a drink of water first.
Yeah, I almost lost my voice.
So, I feel like I'm sitting in front here. We distanced appropriately?
Yeah, I think so.
So I wouldn't mind picking up on some of the things that you talked about, and we'll start off with the big juicy ones, and that is state-sponsored attacks.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of reporting from our friends in the media about, the attacks are getting more stealthier, they're increasing, et cetera, which is great. Everyone looks at two big actors. I'm going to call them out, Russia and China. How do you address your statecraft? And you mentioned about offensive security. I'm going to talk a bit about, ask questions about that in a second. But how do you work out the juicy targets, and how do you respond?
Yeah, that's a good question, because you're going to sort of how we prioritise our work. Because I think maybe what thread you're pulling there, Nigel, is that it's pretty chaotic out there. There's so many adversaries, and for individuals who lose their life savings to sort of low life criminals and individual actors, the consequence of that for them personally is completely devastating. But I think when you have the sort of powers and capability that ASD has, we really are there to focus on the very high end of that challenge. And state-based actors are number one for us. Mm-hmm. And number two for us is serious and organised criminals. And we are trying to focus on putting our resources and capabilities to those that threaten us, where we have uniquely the sort of top secret intelligence benefits that we need to get after them, but also capabilities where, for example, private sector company might not be able to quite assist an entity in the way that we could. But that we're so glad and so supportive of the burgeoning industry in Australia of cybersecurity incident responders, because I think the more Aussies that are at this task, the more chance we have of genuinely making Australia a hard target. And as you know, the best offence is a great defence.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we could talk about that all day. I think everyone's aware we're here till 12.
Yeah.
So, which leads to, and I've mentioned two actors. Of course, there's many others.
There are.
We shouldn't just pick on any one of those two. What's your view around attribution?
Well, I think it has a place, and it can be really helpful to the international debate and awareness raising about the activities of some states that cross lines, understood lines about engagement in cyberspace, and frankly, cyberspace is the new vector for espionage. There have long been well understood explicit and implicit lines of the world's second oldest profession, Nigel, as they say. And when states cross that, I think, and when it's in our national interest to call them out by name, then we do so, and the government in recent times has done that on occasion, including today, where we have called out Iran.
Yes, I saw that in the news this morning. And I agree, I think it's super important we do it. Of course, it's difficult, and criminals are very good at obfuscating themselves to get the actual who the person is with their hands on the keyboard at the time. Yeah,
that's super hard, and I think our mindset around that is that the best objective there is to disrupt and deny. So, and I know you're a former police officer, and in law enforcement, it is a natural objective to try and arrest and successfully prosecute. And I think what you're getting at, Nigel, is that second part is really hard. But what we can do is disrupt their activities and do disruption that denies them the proceeds of their crimes, for example, as well. Because in the end, the criminals are in it for the money, and if it ain't worth the risk because you're not going to get the big payout, then maybe you go on to some other type of crime. I don't know how they think. Maybe that's how they think. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, I agree. And as you said, as an ex-AFP person, we can't arrest our way out of these problems, whether they're in this jurisdiction or other ones. As great as the AFP does with its offshore capability, which is very mature, globally speaking. But how do you think we compare? I'm not talking jurisdiction to jurisdiction globally, not necessarily what you do, more holistically.
Yeah. So speaking about ASD sort of in the world context, as I sort of mentioned in my speech, we're a great beneficiary of an incredible alliance with our Five Eyes partners, just incredible. I think what sets ASD and Australia apart from perhaps other nation states who aren't in such profound alliances as we are, that it's that which gives us a global edge over other countries, and we fully intend to maintain that edge.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you made mention in your speech about the Five Eyes community, and going back to my law enforcement days, it was super important from a policing perspective, but for all the reasons that you mentioned. Now, of course, there's other nations out there which are on our side, which are for democracy and doing the right thing online and uphold all the norms. Do you think we should expand Five Eyes? How do we bring others, dare I say, into the tent?
Yeah, it's sort of a funny kind of phrasing of that question, because the Five Eyes is the Five Eyes, and as I sort of touched on, it certainly in the sort of SIGINT and cyber security space, we got together after the Second World War, and even before that, probably little known to some people, but our Canadian counterparts, for example, were here during the Second World War in Australia, because we didn't yet have our own signals intelligence capability as such, actually assisting us during the Second World War. So when you think about an alliance and a set of relationships, capability and integration that goes back nearly 80 years, it's sort of a framing issue to go, oh, can someone just sort of join that today? And so I think, though, in the strategic environment that we're facing, and as you say, the importance of democratic countries standing together and sharing information, intelligence, capabilities and insights for those who might seek to disrupt that freedom of will and movement and democracy and our values, then we do have to stand together. And we do already have very good relationships beyond those Five Eyes partnerships to that very end.
So you'll see it developing, you think, with other, on a needs basis? Would that be a...
Absolutely, yeah, and we're pretty practical people in ASD. You might have got that. You might have got that impression.
Absolutely.
Operationally, we'll partner with other countries when it's in our mutual interest to do so, and we do.
Yeah. Awesome. A left field one for you. Do you think that we'll see a splintering of the internet because of this? I hate to use the word balkanisation, but there I've said it.
Yeah, I don't know, but will we see it, or is it already happening, Nigel? Yeah, I'm gonna be controversial back at you. I worry that it might be. I mean, there's a lot of countries in the world who already do a great deal of management of what their curation of what their own people can see through the internet, what they can access, and I do it as a mother, right? So there's sort of, you know, it's technically possible, and some are already doing it, and I think, you know, I don't think that's in our future. I think it's happening now.
But to that point, and you're a very, very technical agency with extremely gifted people, how do they get their head around how things evolve technically and call it socially? We, you know, look at the movement in social media and nation states blocking some of their citizens seeing certain things. How do they get their head around being purist technical people with a technical mandate, obviously, to do certain things, whether it's war fighting or otherwise, to the whole umbrella that is what we in the Institute would call multidisciplinary cyber?
Yeah, well, first of all, we do have some of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life working in ASD, and from a technical point of view, they do things with technology that it was not built for and no one imagined it could be used for, and I'm super proud of them for that prowess. In the world in which I've started to describe of covert online operations, for example, we do partner, though, people with that deep technical expertise with other people who understand humans and how they think and how they might be engaged or inspired to act in certain ways that might help us get inside their network, to, as I sort of mentioned in my speech, in the case of organised criminals, to then break down their organisation from inside it, for example. And so we are looking to a future of needing and wanting people with a vast array of skills and talents within ASD, whether it's, you know, deep technical expertise or a fascination with the human psyche and, you know, how we might engage with it.
Yes, I agree that human factors is a super important part of it. So with that, do you see any skewed of technical skills needed more for against a nation-state attack versus a serious and organised crime attack? Do you equate them as two different responses, both offensively and defensively?
Yeah, so nation states, a bit like I've described ASD. So we have lots of important rules that we follow to protect the information that we hold, for example. So a large amount of ASD's information, its data and so forth, is held on top secret networks, and we fiercely guard those. Those are our crown jewels, Nigel. And we're not alone. Other state-based actors also put a great deal of resources into protecting their own highly classified and sensitive information from people like us. And therefore, they pose a different challenge as a target, if you will, to perhaps serious and organised criminals who may be more motivated sometimes to crow about their successes, for example, which is I guess one angle on how they might behave differently to a state actor. And but that said, there's great commercially available encryption for great good use, like the protection of our banking systems and so forth, that are equally open to criminals to procure and use. So they are becoming a harder target for us from that perspective.
So just following on from that, you mentioned quantum, for example, and put another plug in for UNSW.
Yes.
Off the back.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we have a past Australian of the Year that's very heavily involved in that. How do you see that's going to shape your organisation, both from, again, an offensive and a defensive perspective?
Yeah, so just like probably any other sort of, technology leap that the world has made in the past, and I feel really confident about my people's ability to get on top of that and already doing a lot of thinking about it. And a lot of planning going ahead now among the Five Eyes for quantum-resistant cryptography. So we'll be ready when quantum computing is out there, that our encryption keys that protect our military and government secrets will be resistant to that. But of course, there's also a great benefit for ASD. I mentioned that we bought the first supercomputer in 1986. My dad, who I didn't grow up to want to follow in my dad's footsteps, but here I am. I did. He actually bought that computer in 1986, and it's in the lobby of one of our buildings. It's the most hilarious-looking ancient artefact now. With
to have a cassette?
Yes, almost. It's got sort of cassettes at the back. It's got more gold than I have in my wedding ring, Chad. Anyway, I love you. It's, we've always sort of stayed on top of technology in that regard, and we love to be sort of first to have, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that in the future. I think quantum computing too has enormous ability to assist us with our signals intelligence and cyber defensive missions. So of course we're investing in making sure we're ready to go when the world delivers it to us.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, and we'd be guessing to see when it'll come in mainstream and how it'll come, and all those sorts of things. People way smarter than me. Yeah. We'll try and work that out, and as long as they tell me where to invest.
Yeah.
In the startups, I'll be happy.
Insider trading, no.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah.
But again, going back to the people element, you're going to need. You already have a technically brilliant people. You work whole of government. You work obviously with the ACSC. How does that all sort of work from data in, data out within the whole defence environment?
Yeah, so we are increasingly trying to develop the best possible national threat picture that we can garner, and we have incredible partnerships with the Australian Federal Police and the ACIC, of which we're incredibly grateful, but also Defence and the Australian Defence Force. And the private sector, all of whom have personnel embedded with us in the Australian Cyber Security Centre, working together to have the best possible sort of picture that we can garner for Australia, and working with our mates in Home Affairs who have a responsibility for policy in cyber security. We have worked hard this year with the government for legislative amendment that is going to greatly increase our chances as a nation to be able to see what's coming at us through the internet and be able to defend it in real time. But also more importantly, and we've had some great examples of this throughout this year through those partnerships that I mentioned, where, including with the private sector, where when they've been able to share with us what they've started to see on their networks, we can divine a pattern. And in a couple of cases, we have been able to warn companies of imminent ransomware attacks against them before they've happened, because criminals sort of have a pattern, a sort of technical pattern of how they'll lay down sort of precursor malicious software ready to come back later and enter your network and then try to, ransom you into paying the money to give your data back or worse. So, we're really coming from strength to strength there and improving our national picture, but that whole of government commitment, the being in the one place, side by side, making sure that we've got the legislative settings right to help us have a true national picture is really our big goal.
Of course, if you're seeing ransomware, I can give you my Bitcoin wallet address. Do you want to?
Nigel.
I don't know if you want to up your budget the same way, but we can talk later. But so while we're talking about the people part, and I'm going to lead with my chin here, is are universities, the TAFE sector, the whole education from high school up, are we delivering you? Are we creating the best job-ready people for your slice of the pie?
Yeah, that's a good question, Nigel. I'm super proud to say that ASD does not have any problem getting applicants for our jobs in all of our fields. We've had 8,000 people apply to work in ASD this year, and we have 800 people waiting in various stages to come and join us for employment. So, you know, I feel like we're the lucky ones. We're a pretty cool place to work, and we do get amazing people who really want to do something for their country, and if that's what really motivates them, then we're lucky to attract them to ASD. I think though, of course, you know, with this captive audience, if there were things that we could kind of do better, and some unis and TAFEs are excellent at this, really want a partnership with the universities in helping those students be immediately employable at the end of their degree or throughout their degree. We do have internships and cadetships that we'd love seeing uni students join us in summer, and then you know, that I think helps them with their studies, because then they see how it might be applied in a real job. And I think partnering together we can't do enough of to sort of get people to a job-ready stage. And, you know, we really want unis to teach students the latest kind of programming languages, and not, you know, not saying this is what happened, but Fortran that I learnt, you know, no one can remember that. But anyway, yeah, just making sure that those connections and our students are as job-ready as possible.
So what advice, we have students here, we have over 400 people online, which is great.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them? They're sitting here today, they're thinking, this might be a career for me.
Yeah.
How do they start positioning themselves through not just study, but pretty much everything to be job ready, so that when they come knocking on your door, they give themselves the best chance, and logically you end up with the best candidate? Yeah.
So don't limit yourself. If you're out there sort of hearing about ASD and you're thinking, wow, they sound really technical and that's a little bit scary, you know, don't say to yourself, oh, well, you know, I've done a degree in international relations, so they probably wouldn't want me. We want you. We want all sorts of people. So hop onto our website and have a look. We do run for high school students, especially focused on girls, a girls programming network. So you can try before you buy. That's also something we offer, an internship or a cadetship if you're at high school.
Okay.
That, you know, you can come in, we'll pay you and you'll have 6 weeks or whatever. And if you don't like it, you haven't committed your life to it, you know. And so don't sort of filter yourself out from checking us out and having a look. That'd be my advice.
Well, it's a competitive job place. There's other places in the private sector, as you mentioned, they're always itching for people.
Yeah.
I would argue the reason for going to government is you get to work on the juiciest targets.
Yeah, I reckon too. But I think, Nigel, in the context of the threat environment that we're facing, that having great people, great Australians with the right skills in our private sector, in our unis, in government, in law enforcement, in intelligence, national security, in policy, you know, that's what we need. And it's one big team that needs to operate together to create the strongest defensive shield we can muster around our country.
That makes perfect sense. Is there anything further? On that note, it's a pretty good way to end.
No, thanks, Nigel. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, no, thank you. And for the students in the room, there's some bags up the back and water bottles and other information. For those online, asd.gov.au, I'm going to say /careers.
You got it, thanks. And for those out there who are worried about cyber stuff, check out cyber.gov.au. We're there to help you, or 1300 Cyber 1, give us a call if you're in trouble.
Yep, a great resource amongst government, and also where you report cybercrime as well is another important aspect.
Thanks, Nigel.
Surrounding that. But thank you, Director General. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for everyone for turning up today, and we'll have a cup of coffee and have a chat, and thanks very much.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks for having me.